A large plains expanse is ahead of the figure. They turn and there's a few other figures. A tall male warrior in plate armor, which is the master of the castle. A near full orcish warrior wielding a massive double-bladed axe, a dwarf with a hammer slung over his shoulder, an elven archer with beautiful, almost owl-looking wings, and a tiefling cleric with a mace and a shield look out from the plateau in the new land.
"Should we explore and see if the area's safe to bring in the civilians?"
asks the orc. No time, comes a voice, and the viewer looks to their other side to another figure. This one is in ornate robes with an ornate yet plain mask, with a hand outstretched to a portal behind them. It's flickering as if failing. On the other side is another robed figure, and they start ushering people through. The vision blackens and comes back to the viewer kneeling beside a collapsed robed figure as they pant heavily, consoling them softly. The viewer turns to the amassed refugees, and the group is deciding what to do. They tell everyone to stay here while they look at the immediate area. The warrior tells the viewer to stay here and watch them, and get their reclaimers back up and on the portal in case they need to quickly exit this land. The group heads out, and the viewer looks back to the collapsed reclaimer, rubbing his back as he struggles to stay upright. The refugees are all resting, murmuring to themselves when the viewer brushes to the side of the plateau, small curved sickle-like weapons in their hands ready to defend, but the commotion is the party coming back. Bloody and wounded, carrying back a medium-sized creature to eat. The party sits as the tiefling starts healing the group with magic, struggling some as the viewer starts to sing some to calm the people and help in the healing. The vision cuts out to them looking at the plains from the plateau as a village is being made a little further down. The viewer turns around to the dwarf, asking what they're going to do for a place to help defend themselves from the creature. The reclaimer says something and starts moving his hands after placing a small object on the ground, and after a few minutes a large castle being created, and they go in. The vision comes out again to them riding tame creatures going through the village and beyond as the refugees have spread out a bit. Farmland being created with pens holding creatures for ranching. The group is chatting and in a jovial tone. The vision cuts to a view of the ground, and there's panting, then looking up to a battlefield. Scores of creatures dead, with a large flying creature coming in for an attack. The elf is firing a stream of arrows as the leader is calling out orders, as he stands above where the orc is laying on the ground, seemingly taken out. The dwarf throws a small hammer as the creature comes in for attack run. The hammer returns to the thrower even as they miss. The creature comes down, trying to grab some of them, missing as they roll out of the way. The viewer is on the ground as the creature comes back around for another attack. As they get closer and closer, seemingly going to snatch the viewer up in its massive maw, there's a flash of arcane light as the beam forces the creature down some, then it veers off. The viewer looks to the side as the figure rides up, letting loose a massive lightning bolt into the creature as the reclaimer arrives. He gets off the mount as he lets loose a barrage of magic. The group drives it off. As they all try to recover, the tiefling runs over to the downed orc and tries to cast a spell, but the magic fizzles out. The viewer walks over and sees a nearly shredded orc warrior on the ground and drops as there's a loud screaming as it sinks in that they lost their compatriot, and the cleric couldn't do anything. The vision goes to a grave with a semi-fresh bump as they then look up, and the once plain has more and more trees. The viewer turns and walks to the castle. A couple of guard towers under construction could be seen. They walk through the castle up to the top floor where the group is looking at a rough map. They were trying to plan something, and the leader opens a chest, breaking a seal and opening it. He passes the scroll around. It was a building schematic for an adventurers guild hall with runes for teleportation sigils and the ability to connect it to the demi-plane so the group could get supplies and reinforcements. An argument breaks out between the party as the vision goes black. The vision comes back as the viewer is riding a mount heading out of a village, following a small stream. As the viewer looks around, the reclaimer is on a mount with them as they follow the stream for a while. There's buildings the refugees have spread out, taking advantage of the fertile ground. It seems days pass as they follow the stream. The reclaimer seemingly following something until they come down to a slight decline in the earth as it goes into a almost valley. In the middle is a raised area with a plateau. They make their way there, and it is out of the valley enough, and the reclaimer says this is a spot as the vision fades. The vision comes back to them building a large building. It's coming along nicely. Walking inside, the viewer sees a large door being built as the guild hall is almost complete. The reclaimer comes in and starts to chant as powers shoot into the frame as sigils glow, but a moment later they go dark. He tries again and again as he gets more and more tired. He soon collapses exhausted as the viewer runs over to check on him, and the vision fades to black again. It comes back to them in the study talking, not sure why the rituals were not working, all of them looking battle-worn now. Armor repaired somewhat, scars all over showing that time hasn't been kind. The vision comes back to a low-lit hallway. The viewer carried a tea set to a barely lit room. Inside was the reclaimer hunched over with parchment all over, mask on the desk. The viewer rubs his back and offers a cup, and he drinks it. The papers have scribblings as he's trying to figure out what's going on. The vision comes back to the figure kneeling by a stream, washing some blood off. Looking up, seeing the tiefling healing the dwarf as he rests on a slain creature. The warrior finishes off a near-dead creature before coming over and checking on the group. The viewer looks back to the stream and splashes some water on the face and scrubs the armor a bit. A reflection being seen in the water is that of a beautiful woman with matted black hair from the gore. Even covered in gore, her beauty shines through, as she's a half-celestial, a slight glowing coming from her chest, and the amulet she's wearing, as she's wearing the Heart of Resilience. She stands and goes over to the group. They look to a mountain range and start walking towards it. Dozens of 10-foot-tall creatures lay slain as they make their way towards the range, following the small stream. The vision cuts out and comes back to the middle of a fight. The two warriors fighting a large, scaly-looking creature that could eat them with one bite. Large spikes covering its body. It bites into the dwarf and whips him about. The human warrior jumps up and slashes at the throat, trying to get the creature to dislodge its compatriot. The tiefling runs and bashes into the creature, trying to get the dwarf out. The creature howls and drops the dwarf. He lands with a thump as the viewer runs up and sings something, and the dwarf looks back and thanks. Eyes sunken and skin pasty like the life has been drained from him. The three members fight it, trying to put it down as the viewer sings and seems to inspire them. Soon the creature is beaten down and tries to run away, but they surround it. They seemingly kill it, and it collapses a bit. The dwarf turns to the viewer and nods and goes to say something as the creature's tail whips by the dwarf. The split-tipped tail with long scythe-like ends seemingly misses the dwarf. Then, a moment later, a red line appears from the top of the head to the waist. Then the two parts slide apart as there's a small explosion, as there's a scream and the viewer runs up. The human warrior running and stabbing his greatsword through the head, making sure the creature is dead. The tiefling rushing forward and tries to cast something. Faint light blue magic, sputtering and fizzling as they try again and again, but it fails as the viewer's vision starts to cloud a bit from the crying. Then it goes black. A quick flash shows them bringing the body with them as they traveled, the human pulling the sled as the group breaks off from the stream and heads further into their plains with sporadic trees about. They get to a large ominous tower that shoots into the sky hundreds of feet, with some spirals jutting out like spikes randomly across it. Rainbow-like lights dot it randomly like little lights spilling from rooms. As they get closer, the ground turns, and it's seemingly twisted. The once plains is rocky juts with seemingly geysers spraying up randomly. Large aerial creatures circle about. The twisted land is a good kilometer from the tower. As the group starts to head there, there's a ripple, and a gate opens, and out steps the reclaimer. He walks over, and the speech is warbled, but it seems the group is arguing. He looks back towards the tower and then points to the gate for the group to go through it. They reluctantly head through the gate. The viewer stops in front of the reclaimer and shakes her head slowly and looks down a bit as she heads through the gate. The vision comes back with a new grave by their old grave, as they have now buried two fallen comrades. The viewer turns towards the castle. A blink, and now they're in the study, on a couch writing in a journal. Today we have buried Agar. Him and Fairst are at rest. Zuthia says even in this land their spirits would go to the gods so they can be at rest. I don't know if she's saying that to make us feel better or as a prayer that the gods can reach here. She's been having more and more trouble casting her spells and recovering them. They drain her more, and as we've seen the battle with the spike creature, she struggles to write the words. Killing Agar, she couldn't bring him back. Her spells just fizzled out like a novice learning how to shape magic. The ceremony was beautiful. Yaren said some nice words, but holds up to his title of stalwart. Nevara is still doing her scouting and couldn't make it back. I tried contacting Kalar and Zinmiz, but there was no answer. Roirin didn't come to the funeral. He's been spending more and more time in the basement in his little work area. I'm worried for him. With the survivors spreading out amongst the plains more, it's getting harder and harder to keep them protected. Yaren has been training some to protect the villages from the Dinosauric creatures. I fear that many more are going to be added to the graveyard. I can't get close to any of them. My heart can't handle more heartbreak. A hand goes up and rubs the softly glowing heart-shaped amulet as the vision goes black. The vision comes back to inside a finished guild hall, and the Reclaimer is casting into the archway, again with a couple others seemingly chanting. Seems a few of the survivors were trained a little in the arcane arts. The viewer walks up as a soft portal forms in the archway. There's a bit of excitement, but a moment later the portal starts to fizzle, and the Reclaimer redoubles his effort trying to keep it going like someone trying to get a fire going as the sparks die. A moment later an acolyte falls down, blood pooling around their head as they expire. The portal fizzles out, and the Reclaimer launches a spell barrage at it in frustration. The viewer ushers the acolytes out and walks to calm him. He turns. I've enchanted dozens of portals. This should be working. I've even used local materials. It should be working, he says, exasperated, as he leans against the viewer as she comforts him. The vision cuts back into the acolytes working on some items. Seems they're being trained in chanting. The viewer walks in and gets their camera as they walk to the study. Zuthi and Yern were there and they had maps out. They start demanding to know what's in the tower. The Reclaimer tells them that he can't say, and they argue again before he relents with all that's going on. It's an old tower of his master's. He'll go in to see if there's anything that they can use, but it must only be him. The security is dangerous to all. He has a slight chance due to being a Reclaimer, but even then it's a slight chance. He'll finish up training the acolytes then go. That way they have some magical assistance. The vision cuts to the elf, motioning for them to follow her. They head into the little building and then down a tunnel into a mine. They walk and get to a cavern with offshoot tunnels. Inside this seemingly dumping area is piles of minerals, as it seems the miners have found veins of ore. On a table is some chunks of a speckled gold-like material. They look over it and the Reclaimer casts a spell on it. It has amazing enchanting properties and isn't like anything they've seen before. The vision cuts to a forge outside the castle with a worker finishing smelting a piece of this metal. They try it out and find out how hard it is, yet surprisingly light. They make a short sword and a shield to test it out. The group is around some new equipment made out of the material. They augment their regular equipment with this and then put the rest into ingots into a massive vault. Inside it is a massive pile of gems, weapons, and bones of different creatures. A massive loot haul for if they can get back to Mayor Taladon. The vision cuts to them looking at different villages, making sure everything is okay, then heading to the guild hall. There's some buildings around it, creating a small village. They're going to try to create the portal again. They open a crate with some of the speckled gold mineral forged items. They hammer them into the portal archway, then they start chanting some more. The acolyte's even more powerful, and the portal activates and stabilizes some more, and everyone cheers. The Reclaimer and the other wizards keep chanting to try to make sure it stays open. After a bit, the portal fails again, and the room laments. Their best hope gone again. The viewer comforts the Reclaimer as everyone cleans up. They knew it was folly to push till someone died. The vision cuts into a dark room, eyesight shifting a bit to adjust to the darkness. The viewer is laying and sits up a bit, the vision focusing on the Reclaimer putting on his robes. Where are you going? The soft, melodic voice asks.
Going to do what's needed. Sleep. You're going to need your strength,
comes his reply, as he grabs a mask on the dresser and puts it on, then heads out. The viewer waits a moment, then gets up and slips on her equipment and slinks out. Going to the stairway, she heads down and down, past the first floor to the basement, goes through a door and heads right, staying quiet. Looking around the corner, there's a flash of light as a portal opens on the floor. The Reclaimer steps into it and disappears. The viewer sprints and just makes it into the portal and teleports through. The sight is now that of a large looming tower ahead. The Reclaimer walking up to the tower and a door opens. The viewer follows and heads in. The vision blurs and comes back to the viewer darting into a room with the laboratory equipment in it. The viewer hides and after a moment gets up, seeing a soft glowing icy crystal shard. A hand reaches out and touches it. There's a flash of frost and the hand is covered in frost. Holding her hand, the viewer peeks her head out and looks both ways. The walls blurring as the mind can't focus on them. The viewer heads back and then a large creature comes around, unable to comprehend what she's seeing. There's a flash of light as a lightning bolt hits the creature in the chest. The Reclaimer comes in and grabs her.
What are you doing here?
He roars out and pulls her along as they run. He leads her through a maze to the entry door before stopping. He goes to open a gate and then notices the frosted hand.
What's that?
He asks and looks at it. It's just an ice blast, comes the reply. They go through the portal, but it malfunctions, and they come through in the air. The Reclaimer grabs the viewer and slow falls him, landing in a small divot with a stream running through it. It's spread, he says, and the viewer looks down and sees the frost spread up the arm to the elbow. The Reclaimer casts a few spells trying to fix it, but it slowly expands.
I have no more teleportation,
he laments, and makes a fire and gets her close. The frost doesn't stop spreading. The Reclaimer keeps trying different things. Spells, some poultices, nothing works. Soon he's frantically trying to stop the spread as it comes up the viewer's arm, down her chest and legs. The darkness fades and the sun comes as the viewer can't move. The Reclaimer has tried everything. He passes out past exhaustion levels. When he wakes up, he looks at the viewer.
I'll be back with Zuthia,
he says and teleports out. Seems a moment later, Zuthia and him teleport back in and she starts trying to fix it.
What is this?
She asks as she starts casting a spell, soft blue light expanding over the viewer. It slows the ice a bit, and she casts again and again, a few spells failing, which aggravates the tiefling. The Reclaimer walks off and comes back a bit later with some items and starts using them, trying to help fix the frost. There's a glow and the viewer looks down as her feet and legs go from frost-covered to frost solidifying into metal and then darken into a dark blue steel. Zuthia and the viewer yelp, and Zuthia tries more spells, but she runs out. The metal climbs up the body, and the Reclaimer pulls Zuthia away, and looks to the viewer as the ice climbs up the body. Zuthia goes to reach out, and a metal-covered hand reaches and grabs hers. There's a growl, and her eyes go wide as she's brought close, and the hand snaps up to her neck.
No, don't!
Calls the Reclaimer, and then there's a snap as the viewer looks back to Zuthia as her head falls to the side and her body limp. No! Comes as the viewer's voice, but with a deeper undertone, as she lets go of the dead tiefling and slowly pulls the enlarging metal arm back. The view looks up to see the Reclaimer step back and utter something, and then the viewer growls and lurches forward like a beast as the Reclaimer lets loose a massive spell and holds the viewer. The Reclaimer walks up.
What happened to you?
He looks at the body.
I'll be back. I'll fix this. You stay here.
He picks up her body and gates out. The vision stays to the field as the sky dims and brightens some. Then the Reclaimer comes back and tries some more stuff, but the view just grows some as the Reclaimer seems to shrink. A large metal arm shoots forward and the Reclaimer dodges and keeps dodging until he gets out of the range of the arm. He tries a few more things and leaves again. The skies brighten and dim over and over again. The Reclaimer comes back and unleashes a torrent of arcane energy into the viewer, immobilizing it. He sits and talks of what he's tried. Yern buried Zuthia and he let know that she died bravely, fighting a new monster.
And that is what you were when you killed her. Monstrous. But I will fix this. I promise.
He talks a bit more than leaves. The sky brightens and dims rapidly. The Reclaimer comes back and talks, and then the viewer attacks. A battle ensues as he unleashes energy that scars the land.
Fine. I'm sorry for coming with no news.
He portals away. He comes back, lamenting on how he couldn't find anything with all his research. There's another fight, and the landscape is destroyed more. He barely manifests a portal out. Sometime later, as a small stream has started to flow past the Reclaimer, he comes back.
I'm sorry. I haven't found anything. Nothing I tried could work.
Are you still in there? He looks up as a hand comes up and hits him, the large metallic arm staggering him as he rolls away. He fires off a massive barrage of energy that staggers the viewer back and creates a crater. The Reclaimer is gone. Some time later, as the stream grows a bit more, the Reclaimer comes back. He talks more of what's happened, filling in that there's more villages that they're struggling to keep them protected. After a bit, there's a bit of a soft voice, then it has a deep undertone as if it's trying to talk. The Reclaimer looks and encourages the viewer to keep trying. After a bit, the viewer stops and looks down a bit, unable to form words. It starts to snow heavily. The Reclaimer comes back and looks around at the crater that's forming.
How are you doing this week?
Any luck on moving? Talking? He asks, and there's no reply as he lights a fire. There's a growl and an arm shoots out to attack him as he dodges.
Whoa! What's gotten into you? I thought we were doing good,
he says, and there's a breath of snow belches out and snuffs the flame, then looks at the Reclaimer.
No, no, he says as there's an inhale, and he fires off a spell, and the creature deflects it. Looking off to the side, it carves a tunnel into one of the walls. The Reclaimer lets loose another barrage to keep the viewer stunned and looks at the destruction. I'll be back when I have news. I'll stop coming by with no news, he says, defeated, and leaves. The vision flashes as the sky brightens and dims rapidly. The stream continues to carve a path through the area as it sinks a bit more and more. Giant walls rise up as the stream makes a slow rippling, dripping, and then a waterfall covering up the tunnel from the fight. As the vision continues, small mounds of metal start forming. After time, it turns blue, then darkens. The Reclaimer comes back. He talks of what has happened. The plains being overrun by a forest. Seems their fight had unintended consequences. He conducted experiments and has finally found out how to get out of here. He walks over and places a hand on the chest of the viewer. Funnily enough, you had the key all along, he says as he taps the chest. Your amulet. Its properties would allow portals to stay open longer than just a few seconds. The heart's in the forest, he chuckles dryly. Of course I won't tell Yair or Nevara. They'll insist I kill you and take the amulet, and that I refuse. We all get out of here. I will not leave you behind. There's a soft groan as if trying to say something. I know, save the civilians. Well, too bad. I'm not leaving you here. I will find a cure. He soon leaves. Lots more time passes and he comes back. Still no cure. I can't even contact my master. I know he'd have the answers, but there's no way to get a message out. I'll build an amplifier and hopefully be able to call for help. Any change with you? He asks as if he'd get a reply. He stays for a bit, then leaves. More sky flashing, and he comes back and hits the viewer. Why'd you have to follow me? Why? You knew it was dangerous. You knew even I would have a hard time. Why? He screams out as the air ripples with arcane energy. He has a freak out for a bit, broken from seeing the viewer. He leaves after a bit. The sky flashes lots and then darkness. The vision comes back to the stone walls even higher as the pit has sunken even more. There's a light, then a face wearing a helmet. Muffled words, then pain as it pulls back a pick and it hits again, and another flash of pain. An arm comes up and throws it off. Slowly the viewer starts to move, but being still so long means it's slow. The figure with the pick throws an axe, then grabs a bag and runs off. The viewer tries to follow, but stops after a bit and goes back, and after a bit the vision goes black again. The Reclaimer wakes the viewer. No mask this time. It's been a few years. Over 3 centuries, more like it. I'm sorry. Nothing this plane can help you. The force has overwhelmed Yair and his troops. The tower has been changing the creatures too. I left the castle a long time back. I took a few ingots of orsite and have been doing experiments. Still nothing. I'm sorry. I will be trying to go back to Mertaladon. I'll get what we need to fix you, then come back. The brawl in the hall can sustain the passage back for a bit. He puts his hand on her chest and waits a few moments and turns and portals out. The vision clouds a bit and soon turns black again. The vision comes back and there's the party walking about. As a Ganassi, a Azamar, and a werebear searching for gems in the stream.